I gave this build to my friend, and here's what he did with it. And now, I'm gonna give it to you. I'll be honest though, this hunter build isn't particularly new this season. This build has been around for ages and it was always strong, but this season, we've gained access to some brand new mods to match the new stasis armor, and they bring this build up to a whole new level. With these mods and a couple of new weapons from Season of the Lost, we can dial this build up to 11 and absolutely dominate in the Crucible. This is one of my favorite builds, and I really want you to know the story behind it. For that, we have to start from the beginning. Ever since Destiny 1, I've been obsessed with sniping. The experience of practicing my aim, beating my high scores in aim trainers over and over again, and reaping the rewards in-game has always been incredibly satisfying for me. Every time I miss, I'll go back, practice some more, improve, and try again. I don't think I'm going to stop this anytime soon. After all, I know that when I use a sniper, it's ultimately a battle of my aim against my opponents, and all I need to do is be the first one to click. But if you're not a big fan of sniping, hear me out for a second, because this build is definitely not restricted only to snipers. For the longest time, I've sought out builds that give me some sort of an advantage in a duel. I know that at the end of the day, it's ultimately my aim or lack thereof which determines my performance with a sniper. But in Destiny, there are many things which can throw me off or give my opponent an opportunity that I didn't have access to. This idea of getting information on my opponent in order to be better prepared for the duel is the cornerstone of this build. Fast forward to the Forsaken expansion, where hunters got their hands on the Middle Tree Night Stalker, Way of the Wraith. Suddenly, I wasn't only rewarded with an instant kill for landing a headshot, but now I also gained invisibility, which took me off radar, and I was able to see targets behind walls thanks to True Sight. This made landing follow-up kills much easier since I could track my opponents long before they appeared on my screen. In essence, I'd have more information to prepare me for the next duel. Sometime later, during the Season of Opulence, hunters got access to the Khepri Sting exotic gauntlets. Despite the obvious power of having temporary wall hacks on demand, these gloves didn't actually see that much use. Most likely, this was because you had to consume your entire melee charge and the wall hacks only lasted for a short amount of time. Then you'd have a really lengthy cooldown before you could use your True Sight again. In comparison to other popular exotics like Stompies that had an immediately obvious benefit at all times, Khepri's was kind of a hard sell. All of this brings me to today in this video. Unlike some of the builds that I've made in the past, the Khepri Sting playstyle won't actually give you a free instant win button. To the contrary, this build will do something even more powerful. It will empower you to make better predictions and better decisions, which can ultimately lead to you making the winning play. Overall, it will help your progression as a player in almost every regard. But enough talking for now. How do we actually put this thing together? Well, the key element of this build is a stasis flavored version of the Khepri Sting exotic hunter gloves equipped with 2 of the brand new melee kickstart mods. Even though double stacking these mods gives diminishing returns, it can potentially be very much worth it. By putting my Destiny Super Nerd hat on again and counting the frames, it seems that while you're at 100 strength, having 1 mod equipped will trim your melee cooldown by about 12%, and having 2 mods will speed up your melee cooldown by a little over 20%. If you run 2 of these mods with 100 strength, your default melee cooldown will work out to be just under 30 seconds. But that's not all. On our class item, we can run double outreach mods to give us a huge chunk of our melee energy back every time we dodge. If you run at least tier 8 mobility, you can get in 2 dodges before your melee completely regenerates and land a blazing fast 20-second cooldown for your melee ability. That's just crazy. Let me restate that to make sure you understand exactly how powerful this is. Every 20 seconds or so, you get free wall hacks on demand. This essentially means that you'll have your True Sight ready for every single engagement. There is an argument that building for 100 strength is a bit overkill because we do have access to the Gambler's Dodge on our hunter. But that requires you to be close to your opponent, and you won't have this luxury every single time. Since this build is going to be mostly focused on range play, you're going to be able to get those melee charges back from a safe distance using this setup. Depending on what subclass tree you choose, you're going to get different effects from your melee ability. In my opinion, top tree doesn't really work that well here. The idea of a smoke bomb on Way of the Trapper is that once you throw it, it acts like, well, a trap that pings your enemy's radar and confuses them. In this build, we're trying to use our smoke for True Sight, and this isn't really compatible with the distraction idea. If you did really want to use it though, you could shoot the top tree smoke with your weapon to get your wall hacks anyway. For general use, the middle tree Spectral Blades plays by far the best because you can chain your wall hacks so easily thanks to flawless execution. Simply by crouching and landing a headshot kill, the game will gift you some free wall hacks for a few seconds. Since you're using the Khepri Sting, that initial headshot requirement will also be much easier to land in the first place, given your wall hacks and the ability to predict when an enemy is about to enter your screen. If you're stuck in a difficult situation, you can use the middle tree smoke offensively as well. Remember the second part of the Khepri's exotic perk? Smoke bombs deal increased damage, so your wombo combo will be even more effective. While the super did get nerfed recently, the invisibility can easily net you a team wipe if you're careful with your approach. Overall, I'd say this is still the strongest version of the Night Stalker by a pretty wide margin. But before we call it a done deal, let me go on a quick tangent about the bottom tree Night Stalker. If your opponent has extremely good game sense, the invisibility can be useful to throw them off, especially since you can also make your teammates invisible. And don't forget about the Heart of the Pack buff. This is a very underrated part of the skill tree. Heart of the Pack gives you a massive boost to your stats in addition to a large handling boost for your weapons. Every time you go invisible, you're going to get these benefits for 20 seconds. Nope, I didn't stutter, 20 full seconds. Unfortunately, the trade-off for choosing this skill tree is that you're locked into one of the worst supers in the game. Especially in higher level PvP, supers win games, so this is a pretty hard pick to fully recommend. This is why I'd say that middle tree is the best choice for most players, even though bottom tree can certainly work if you're willing to put in the time to master the neutral game. Don't feel like you're missing out in the neutral game department on middle tree though. You have so many options to proc flawless execution easily and consistently. It actually makes more sense to first talk about all the things that don't work so well. Most notably, any kind of weapons with a payload perk might not work so well because it's very likely that the payload portion will actually snag the kill instead of giving you credit for a headshot. Of course, grenade launchers, pellet shotguns, and traditional fusion rifles might not work so well either, since they typically don't focus on dealing precision damage for a kill. Honestly, that's about where this list ends. Every other weapon type can work really nicely for the middle tree Night Stalker. For me, it's mostly the sniper rifle. For you, maybe a slug shotgun, a hand cannon, or a pulse rifle. If you tinker around with your build, I'm sure that you're going to find something that works really great with Spectral Blades and Khepri Sting. By the way, if you happen to have access to the Vex Mythoclast from the Vault of Glass raid, this recently buffed exotic primary fusion rifle is incredible with this build, so be sure to try it out. The default 100 aim assist of the Vex will give you a very easy time to land headshots against your opponents to activate those wall hacks. With the linear fusion mode engaged, this becomes that much easier since you can use your Khepri Sting True Sight to perfectly time the charge up. Following the same idea, the Arbalist and the Lorentz driver can both work excellently with this build. Both of these benefit from the low zoom stat, giving you a great field of view even while you're aiming down sights. In terms of primary weapons, I already mentioned that hand cannons work great with this build because they deal a large chunk of damage with a single headshot. Combine this with their naturally high aim assist and they are perfectly suited to proc the flawless execution. Another interesting idea here though is to run the pulse rifle Cold Denial. The thing that's so special about this pulse rifle is that it comes with the zoom level of a hand cannon while keeping the intrinsic firmly planted perk of a high impact pulse rifle. This means that it's more accurate while you're firing it while crouched. This is awesome because you're already going to be crouching really often to get wall hacks from the True Sight. It also has an extremely fast 0.67 second time to kill for landing a 2 burst. All of this contributes to making the Cold Denial a deadly and strongly synergistic choice for the middle tree Night Stalker. If Cold Denial isn't your favorite pulse rifle though, the Messenger from Trials works really well here too. The incredible lethality of Desperado pairs excellently with the wall hacks from Flawless Execution. But as with all of my other suggestions, don't take these as requirements. Make sure to go out there and try your favorite weapons with this setup. Personally, I'm really enjoying the Vex Mythoclast paired with either a shotgun to cover the closer ranges or a sniper rifle if I want to go for more of those sniper picks. I also combined the Khepri's build with the Charge with Light mods to make it even more powerful. This does unfortunately mean that I have to ditch one of the kickstart mods to make room for all 5 of these Charge with Light mods. That's one for each piece of armor. But I've hit so many clips with a damage boosted Vex, and having multiple ways to become Charge with Light is just too powerful to pass up. On other setups like Hand Cannon Sniper, I don't really see the same value from high energy fire, so the double kickstart mod there makes a little bit more sense. Okay, so Radiant Light and Powerful Friends both add a ton of free stats in the form of strength and mobility. Also, when I pop my super next to teammates, these mods will get both of us Charged with Light. Taking charge is just a nice bonus here, especially since the Vex can produce orbs of light with its catalyst. High energy fire will turn these Charged with Light stacks into an actual damage boost. Combining this with the buff from the Vex catalyst means I can absolutely melt enemy guardians and I can easily activate the LFR mode on the Vex for some nasty one-hit kills. The last mod I use is actually Quick Charge. Since the Mythoclast is considered to be a fusion rifle, it will benefit from the bonus handling provided by Quick Charge while also getting me charged with light for every double kill that I make. This really isn't a very tall order considering how quickly the Vex kills in its current form, especially when paired with a damage boost. Let's take a quick look at this build in action. We're running at least 80 mobility, 100 strength, high recovery, a stasis element flavored Khepri sting, either 1 or 2 of the melee kickstart mods on our gloves, double outreach mods on our cloak, the optional but highly recommended charge with light mods high energy fire, taking charge, powerful friends, radiant light, and quick charge, especially if you're using the Vex. We're using some mods to buff our weapon performance like reloaders and targeting mods, the middle tree night stalker, gambler's dodge, and our preferred jump option, in my case the strafe jump. And finally our favorite grenade, which I would recommend either the void wall or the spike grenade. To get the smoke back as quickly as possible, I suggest dodging at least once during your melee cooldown to proc our double outreach mods. A pro tip here is that you can actually use threat detector on your heavy weapon to signal when you're ready to get your smoke back from the gambler's dodge, even if you don't see your opponents. This is because the radius of the detection on threat detector is about the same as the radius you need to proc the melee recharge on the gambler's dodge. When dueling someone, I suggest you throw in a crouch just before you kill them, so that way you're going to get the wall hacks procced for your next duel. A common mistake I see with players trying to use spectral blades is they always forget to use the flawless execution and they never take advantage of it. It's arguably the strongest part of this entire subclass. Of course, there's also the other extreme too. Some players will tunnel vision on getting flawless execution so much that they crouch all the time, and that makes them a really easy target. You'll need to find a happy medium for yourself. I suggest crouching just before you get the kill to give yourself the wall hacks, and then maybe an extra time or two in the middle of a gunfight to throw your opponent off. If it's too hard to activate, don't worry about it though. Remember that you can get your wall hacks from Khepris every 20 seconds anyways. After all, when you're using this build, the true sight is simply yet another source of information for you. A big part of the skill gap with this build is knowing when that free information will actually be valuable to you. If you throw your smoke down when everyone's on the other side of the map, you really didn't help yourself that much. Also, the radar, your teammates' markers, the kill feed, the status of various objectives, and many more sources of information can give you enough to make an educated decision on what kind of play you should make. But if you're looking for the safest exit out of a difficult situation or the best angle of attack, the true sight from Khepris can be extremely strong. It can show you what angles your enemies are particularly vulnerable to and which escape routes your enemies have failed to cover. This information can be key to making some absolutely incredible plays. For example, it could help you line up a headshot before your opponent even comes into view. But don't think that Khepris is limited to headshotting only with a sniper rifle. It's an awesome tool in your playmaking kit no matter what weapons you're using. Stompies might let you outplay your opponents by being faster, but Khepris will allow you to outplay your opponents by being smarter. Smart plays win games, and just like my friend used Khepris to dominate in his lobby, this playstyle can certainly help you dominate in your lobbies as well. Videos like this one take a lot of work to put together, so I'd really appreciate it if you take a second to subscribe. I promise it'll be worth it. If you like this one, be sure to check out this video covering my Hunter build that lets you throw almost unlimited trip mines in PvP. It's a lot of fun and super powerful.